Welcome. I'm super pumped about this session. As a former IT individual, the whole concept of getting users to do the stuff that I'm supposed to do and get paid to do on a regular basis is awesome. Very excited to be here. My name is Jonah Clevisol. I'm a senior account executive with Jamf, former senior systems engineer, so please don't hold that sales guy title against me. Sorry if I heard that joke already. Very, very excited to introduce a colleague that I've worked with in various capacities at Jamf. Definitely a ninja when it comes to use of Casper Suite, and probably some of the best examples of self-service workflows that I've been able to see since we released the product. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Andrina Kelly.
All right. Good afternoon. Well, you don't respond to me, you respond to him. All right. I see how this is going to go here. All right. So, my name is Andrina Kelly. You may remember me from last year, or you may remember me from 2 days ago. I work in a country called Canada, which is just a little bit north of here. I saw the Canadian sweatshirt come in. I was like, yeah, represent. There you go. Hi. So yeah, I work for a small company called Bell Media. We are the largest media company, private media company in Canada. We have something over 30 network TV stations and over 130 radio stations. So, you know, we're just tiny. So what I wanted to talk about today is about getting our users to do our jobs for us. The very most important thing that you guys should be grabbing, and I know that the Wi-Fi is going to fall over as soon as you do this, I have put up a GitHub for this presentation. And so it is good/JNEC users. If you need to search for this afterwards, my GitHub username is creatively Andrina, and you will find all the information there. And I'll make sure that it gets posted on Twitter and on the agenda for this presentation, so you can all find that afterwards. Really what this is all about is empowering your users, getting them more comfortable to feel like they own their machines, that they don't have to like, oh my goodness, what is this box doing, and I'm too scared to click it, or just clicking the wrong thing. And to stop getting the same email over and over again. The number of times I'll get, I used to get the same question, 5 times in one day, and you end up having these formulated responses of sent this, sent that. And the most important thing is really getting the phone to stop ringing. Is that yours? Crap, it's my phone. Hello? Hello?
Hi, Andrina, how are you?
I'm fine, Alex. I'm a little busy giving a presentation right now. But, is there anything I can do?
All right, sorry to bother you. I was just wondering, though, do you mind if I ask you a quick question now that I've got you?
Well, we are just about ready to get started here, but, if it's quick, you guys don't mind, do you? All right, okay, so if it's quick, go on.
Well, I was using my laptop at home last night, and my son wanted to play a game with me on my computer. I had to install something with him, and now today Safari won't open. Do you know how to fix that?
All right, so it kind of sounds like the installer might have changed something on your machine. Tell you what, if you tried going into self-service, and you'll find in the first aid section there's something actually called machine checkup. Maybe you could try running that and see if that figures things out for you.
Great idea, Andrina. Thanks for your help. Hope that presentation goes well.
Oh, me too. All right, thanks a lot, Alex. Talk to you later. All right. All right, so this is our self-service. And so where I just sent Alex, you'll see up in the very blurry center there's something called machine checkup. And so let's take a look and see what happens when Alex goes to click on that. It gives him this little information screen saying, hey, this is going to go and fix some permissions for you and clear up some caches. And if your machine is just feeling a little bit maybe you can try this. So that just goes off and runs. Cool. Now, what about from our end? What have we done to go and set this up? If you take a look in your JSS, if you were to go create a new policy, it's already in there. This is really, really simple to do. Makes you look like a superstar, and all you have to do is check some boxes. You're going into the Advanced tab, checking off the boxes to tell it to go off and fix some permissions. You go and set it up as a self-service, give it a little description, give it a funky icon, because everybody loves a funky icon, and that's it. You're done. Pretty easy, right? Hands showing people who already have this. Ah, awesome. Hands showing of who's going to go home and make this the first thing that they do when they get home. Awesome, I love it. All right, so the benefits of this, super, super easy to set up. The tools are already in your GSS, and it gives you instant, oh. Yeah, it's totally me again. Hello?
Hi, Andrina. It's Fiona here from Creative. How are you doing today?
Well, hi, Fiona. I'm a little busy at the JNUC right now, but seeing as I just answered a question for Alex, what's up?
Helpdesk came by earlier and installed a new secondary drive in my computer for me, but I can't seem to save anything onto the new disk. Do you think there's a problem with the drive?
Ooh, okay. Well, this is a brand new drive, so I really doubt that that's a problem there. Tell you what. Why don't you go into self-service and into that first aid section, and I think you'll find something in there called Ignore Ownership on Disk.
Okay, I've clicked change and it's asking me to choose the name of the disk I want to ignore ownership on.
Oh, okay, perfect. So from that drop-down, I want you to select the name of the disk, the new one that Helpdesk put in for you.
Why, yes, there it is. It's told me the disk has been set to ignore ownership now.
Ah, cool. All right. And what happens now when you try to copy something to that disk?
Oh, it worked. Aren't you a gem?
Thanks, Fiona. Then I hope you have a nice afternoon.
Haste ye back.
Oh, thanks. All right, that's Fiona. Okay, so what did I just show Fiona? Back in our self-service, in our first aid section, we've got something called Ignore Ownership on Disk. Now, the reason that this came to fruition is during our migration from 10.7 to 10.8, people who had secondary disks in their machines were finding that it was set back to not ignore permissions on this disk, and suddenly they couldn't write anything to that secondary drive in their machine. So when the user goes and clicks on this, pops up a nice little window which has a little drop down that they can go and select the disk that they want to ignore ownerships on. And once they've done that, it comes back and says verified, the name of the disk has been set to ignore ownership. Cool. So how'd we set this one up? In our self-service, in our JSS, we've gone and we're using a shell script. So this is just running a script from our policy, and the script looks like this. That's really easy to read, right? All right, this is why I have a GitHub for you guys. But we're just going to break this down a little bit. So the very first thing that's in here is I'm going to go set up some variables first. So the very first thing I needed to do is because of the way that I'm using a tool here called Cocoa Dialog. If you guys went to the UI in Unix session that was a couple sessions ago, they spoke a lot about Cocoa Dialog there, and you can go and watch the video on that. It was great. And so Cocoa Dialog, it doesn't like spaces and disk names very well, and so I had to go and change the internal field separator, which is what that IFS variable is all about. And then the next thing I have is this really long, nasty, icky-looking string for trying to figure out what the local disks are. And rather than explain this like that and try to point at things, I figured I'd just run that in a terminal session so that you could see it working along the way. So this was my terminal. It's rolling a little bit, right? So I think the first thing we're going to have to do is degauss the screen. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right, so when I'm working out a shell script, I'll sort of go through it. Oh, that's really hard to read. I'm so sorry about that, guys. The first thing I'll do when I'm working out a shell script is I'll try and work it out in terminal first. And then once I've got something that's actually working in the way I like it, that's when I'm going to then take that little one-liner and incorporate it into my script. And so this is what I was doing here is I'm working out how am I going to get this list of disk names, the external disk names. And so what I was looking at here is how can I separate it all out, get exactly the string that I'm looking for, and so this is going to look a lot better in the video when you get it at home and you can read it. All right, so the next thing that we looked at is that actual Cocoa Dialog pop-up. And so this is what it looked like for Fiona on the end there, that came the pop-up with the window. So we're using Cocoa Dialog, and it's giving us a nice little drop down, and it's pulling out those volume names. So we're using the volume name to say, hey, what are those volumes in there? The next part of the script is the actual part where it goes and says, okay, and ignore the ownership on that disk. So the actual tool for doing that is really, really simple. It's the VSDB util. And this is the easiest part of this entire thing, and it's the one that's doing all the hard work for you. All of the other stuff there was to go and be nice to the user and pull out all of those names for the dropdown. And if you're curious about VDB util, you can just pull up the man page for that. And all this is really doing is controlling that little checkbox in the get info on your disk. Am I teaching things here? Awesome. All right, and then it's just a little verification for the user to say, hey, yes, we've done something. Again, using Cocoa Dialog just to pop out, using that variable for the disk that they've changed, and off we go. Okay, so what the Cocoa Dialog? This was before I knew that the UI UX session was actually going to be talking about Cocoa Dialog. And so this is just a screenshot from the Cocoa Dialog website, and a nice little is good link to get you there. So the ignore ownership on disk solves a problem that normally only an admin could do, because you do have to go and unlock the screen to be able to turn that off. And this allows your end user to do it without someone having to go to their desk, which is really what we're looking to do here. And it looks like a GUI tool to your users. They don't have to worry about VDB util. You know about that. They don't have to. And you get, you knew this was coming, right? Hello?
Hey there, Andrina. It's Lee. I was wondering if you might have any thoughts on some strange things my computer has been doing recently?
Hi, Lee. I don't really have a lot of time to do that right now, but I mean, what have you been seeing?
Well, several applications have been crashing. I get the spinning pinwheel a lot and it just feels really sluggish.
Okay, I don't have a quick answer for you right now, but why don't you go ahead and send me the diagnostic logs and we can take a look at what's going on.
Ah, right. That's in the first aid section of self-service?
Exactly.
Cheers for that. G'day, mate.
Talk to you later, Lee. All right, so diagnostics logs. What is Lee talking about? Again, back into our first aid section. You like the logs? Is that awesome? You should have, I sent a screenshot just like this to my boss once I'd come up with this, and the end of the office actually heard the guffaw coming from his office when he saw that. It was great. So yeah, collecting and mailing diagnostic logs. So normally this would be something you'd say it to a user, and they're like, you what now? What is a log? Do I put that on the flyer? So to the end user, they go and click this, and a little while later, it'll pop up their default mail application, and it'll look like this. It'll be to their awesome support group with a title, with the machine name in it. It'll ask them for a little bit of information, saying, hey, what's been going on here, so that they can help us, and it'll attach a nice little zipped up file. Take a look in that zipped up file, and look at all the goodies you get. All right, in there we've got everything that's in the logs file, like a top process, all of the other sorts of bells and whistles, finding out what the machine name is, a system profiler report. What else could you need? All right, so how did we go about doing this? We're going to pop back into our terminal here for a second. And actually, I'm going to, because you guys can't read over this, I'm just going to skip over. So the very first thing that this is going to be doing, this is the entire script, by the way. The very first thing we're doing is setting up those variables again. All right, so the variables that I use on an almost regular basis in every one of my scripts is who's logged into the machine. So this is kind of a default that goes in there. The default mail, we're just going to skip over that one for a second. We're going to come right back to it. What's the computer name? We're going to skip over that file for a second. What is the boot disk, and what's my path to Cocoa Dialog? Because I use Cocoa Dialog in pretty much everything. So now then, that default mail. What I'm doing for that is if you take a look at your launch services plist, kind of fall over the stage. Take a look in your launch services plist, and it actually tells you here that your default mailer is com.apple.mail. And so it's looking for the handler of mail to. So when you see anything which has got a mail to, it knows by default it's going to use the mail app. That could say Outlook if you were using Outlook as your mail app. But the little novel thing for me is normally that I would use some sort of a command line tool to be able to pull out like an awk to be able to pull out what that com.apple.mail is. But if you look at this plist file, you'll see that everything says ls handle roll all. And so how am I going to define exactly that I'm looking for com.apple.mail or I'm looking for com.microsoft.outlook? So I went and did a little bit of Googling around. And what I came out with was a really handy little Perl one-liner. I don't know Perl. But doing a little bit of research and being able to, futz with it and play with it a little bit, what I was able to do using Perl is be able to, backtrack a little bit, and the response that this gives me is just that little one bit of com.apple.mail. So I can now use that as my variable to say, what's your default mail application? And the other nice little thing that I did here is because I need to gather that where those logs are going to and be able to send that into the mail. What I wanted was the most recent file that originated in a directory because I don't know exactly what that file name is going to be. That file name is going to have Sysdiagnose and it's going to have a date and a timestamp in it, and that was going to be a really tricky one to try and figure out what it was going to be. So doing an lsltr on the variable on the directory of where I was saving that file into meant that the most recent file is always going to be at the bottom. So then, when I tail that exact command, I only get that one file. But because I only want just that file name, I'm then just going to awk out the very last. I know it's going to always be in the 10th position, so I'm just going to awk the 10th position, and that's just the file name, and that's all I need for my variable. OK, so the next portion is using Sysdiagnose. Now, this is what I was actually showing you earlier that I knew wouldn't be able to be seen. Sysdiagnose, if you've not come across it, is what actually, it's just built into everyone's machine. You can run it on your machine now. And it's an interactive command that goes off and gathers all those logs together and puts it into a compressed file and throws it into var temp. Okay? And it actually pops open the Finder window at the end as well. Now, it is interactive. So interactive and shell scripts don't tend to go nicely together, but meet my other best friend, expect. And what expect does is it looks for things to happen, and when it sees something, it does something else for you. So for this, I'm spawning the Sysdiagnose. It's expecting the word continue, because it actually says, if you see the word continue, the actual command says hit return to continue. So the very last thing that it sees before I want it to hit return is the word continue. So I'm looking for that, and then it sends the return. So this is doing the hard work for me, and that's creating that compressed folder of all of my logs. And then the next portion of this is sending off the mail, which I'm actually using AppleScript for. So hang on, this is bash and Perl and expect and now AppleScript, all in the same script. So this is for mail.com, and if you're familiar with AppleScript in its simple English, isn't it crazy? Everyone says that, oh yeah, AppleScript, you can just read it. It's just like English. This is not English. I do not speak like this. So here we have, tell application mail, and it's all of the extra little blurb that I've put in the email to make this very user-friendly. I've put in, the default email address that I want it sent to so that our users can't mess that up, and as well as adding in the attachment, which is that temp file. You remember the variable file, so I'm just pulling all that in. And I've also made a different variable for the boot disk in there, just because some people tend to rename their disks, and AppleScript is very particular about the names of disks from file paths that you're sending things from. So that's for mail. Now, remember, I was also checking the ls handle to see exactly what mail application they were using, so do the same thing for Outlook. Cool. So I don't care what mail application people want to use. I have my preference. They have theirs. And then once they've gone through, if they have no default mail application, because some people just like to use webmail all the time, I've also put in a case of, well, what if you don't have one? And because Sysdiagnose by default opens up the Finder window with that file sitting right there, I've just given a little bit of information for the user using Cocoa Dialog to say, hey, you don't appear to have a default mail application set, so take that resulting file and email it to this address. fairly clean, clear and cut. All right, so collecting mail and diagnostic logs. It actually encourages useful information to come from your users. How many people are used to getting that email of something's broken? Yeah, it frustrates me. Like, but what's broken? Help me help you. Because we're creating that default email for them, which actually has some information asking and prompting and prodding. And that's the crazy thing is, well, this is, you saw it was all just on one page, and it's all one bash script, but bash, Perl, AppleScript, and expect. So that's like your scripting superstar right there. And it also answers the question of, what do the logs say? Oh, thank you, thank you. All right. Oh, that is my singing. Actually, I did that. Never mind. You don't want to hear me sing again. So, moving on. You're expecting my phone to ring there, weren't you? The other thing that we have is something else in our toolkit. This is not in our normal first aid. This is for our support administrators, people who actually do have to go out on the floor when they're moving machines around. And it's changed this computer's name. So the way that we've set up machine names in our organization, I know a lot of you have done it by like barcodes or by the serial number of the machine. What we like is we use the extension number of the person who is going to be calling us, so that when we can see their extension number calling us, we don't have to ask them, well, what's your machine name, so that we can use ARD or something. We know it because they've just called us. And we also didn't want to send out our support technicians having to remember all of these commands, because it can get a little stressful and a little bit, it's not fun. And so this is just a really, really easy tool for them. So what it looks like for them when they go into self-service is a little thing in there saying change this computer's name. And you notice the text I've put in here is a little bit more tech savvy than it is user savvy, because it's not so much that I don't want them to not know about scutil, is that I want them to know that it's using scutil. I just don't want them to have to remember what the command is each time. You know, it should be at least leading them in the right direction, so that in the future, if they want to go do some more research or information, they'll know what it was they were using. So this brings up, again, Cocoa dialog, saying, OK, put in the new machine name for this computer that you've just moved to another desk, and so it's now got a new phone extension. They say OK, and then it comes back and says, yep, computer name changed. Computer name is being changed to, and the name that they've just typed in nicely for you. OK, on our end, again, a nice, easy script for you guys to read. Let's break that down a little bit. So the very first part of that is setting up our, we've set up our variables, always using Cocoa dialog. And so you can see the very first one is saying, hey, what's the computer name? And it's an input box, so they enter in the computer name, and that creates our computer name variable. The guts of the actual script is using scutil just to go off and set everything for us. And then another Cocoa dialog to come back and tell the end user that computer name that you just entered in has now been set. Easy. And very, very useful. You knew it was coming, right? Hello?
Hi, Andrina. It's Alex again. I know you're giving that excellent presentation right now, but I've got this really annoying issue I thought you might be able to help with. Oh, and by the way, that machine checkup completely fixed the Safari problem.
Good to hear. So what's the new issue you've got?
Well, I'm using a machine I haven't logged into for a while. It keeps telling me to put my password in for my keychain, which I do, but it says it's wrong.
OK. When was the last time you changed your password, Alex?
A couple weeks ago.
OK. And if you try using the password you were using before that for your keychain prompt?
I don't remember what password that was.
Right then. It sounds like your login password and your login keychain have gotten out of sync at some point. If you don't remember your old password, let's just try and create a new keychain for you. So why don't you head on back into the first aid section of self-service and find a tool that's called Fix Login Keychain.
Okay, I've found it. It's asking me for my password.
OK, perfect. So type in the password that you're using to log in, and it'll create a brand new keychain for you and stop all those keychain prompts coming up.
Excellent, thanks. Oh, and I was speaking with Julie earlier, and told her about the machine checkup in self-service. She ran it also and said her machine felt a lot snappier afterwards.
That's good to hear. Talk to you later, Alex.
Bye, Andrina.
All right, Alex, he's always bothering me. Okay, so this is what Alex was seeing. Alex was seeing that Safari wants to use your login keychain, and he was frantically typing and getting it wrong each time because he doesn't remember what his password from 2 or 3 iterations ago was. So I sent him off to self-service, and he went in and he found the fixed login keychain. And so this is just telling the user, in the case where your login keychain gets out of sync with your login keychain, you should use this tool. It'll delete your existing keychain and recreate a new one for you. Clear enough? They click on that, and it asks them to enter their current login password. And it's all nicely hashed out, so someone looking over their shoulder can't figure out what their password is. And that's it. That's problem solved for the user. That's actually faster than any of you going into Keychain Admin and going and deleting and recreating, and that's pretty darn fast. So the script for doing this. Very first thing, of course, setting up those variables. Where's Cocoa dialog? Who's logged in? And the next thing it's going to do is do a list of the keychains from security. Now that looks like a bit of a mess, doesn't it? There's all sorts of seds and awks, and yeah, let's break that down a little bit. So if you go in and you do a security list keychains, that's the output you get. It's a whole long list of keychains, and really all we care about is that login keychain. So how do we get just that login keychain? So to whittle this down a little bit, I know it's called login keychain, so let's grep for login. Okay, good. So now I've got that long string with my login keychain surrounded by quotes. I don't really want those quotes. So let's set them out. So now I've just got the path to the login keychain. We're looking better, but when you're using security, all it wants is login.keychain. It doesn't want the whole long path. So the next little bit we're going to do is replace those slashes with spaces so that it's now column separated. And now I can just pull out whatever the very last field is, because I don't know how many fields there's going to be to get there. Pull out the very last field, and that's it, login.keychain. So there's our variable done for us. So then the next thing we're going to do is as the user. So sudo, we created a variable for our logged in user, and then run this command as that user. So security delete keychain, login.keychain. That gets rid of it, solves part of the problem. Next thing we need to do is ask that user for their password, because we're going to be using that for creating their new keychain. So this is, again, a secure input box in Cocoa dialog. Using the result of that as a variable for password. And this is where we're going to be using my best friend expect again. Get to know expect. You will love expect. So all we're doing here is sending the command as the user, security, create a keychain, login.keychain. And when you do this on command line, you'll see I went to create one for the JNUC here, and it's asked me for a password for my new keychain. Okay, so we got the user using Cocoa dialog to put in their password before. We know what that variable is. So we're just going to use expect to send that variable. So it's looking for the end of the word keychain, and it's going to put in password and do it again, and that's it done. New keychain created. And just the very last thing to make sure that it gets used in the right way is we just set that keychain as their default keychain so that it works when they log in. That's it. So for fixing the login keychain, if your users are anything like mine, they will always change their password in the most inconvenient location. It's never where it should be changed. And as I was saying, doing it this way is actually, we found, a lot faster than having to go in and open up keychain access and delete it and recreate it and set it as default. This is miles faster, and it means that we don't have to do it. The user does this themselves. So the next big question, I have a feeling you may have all been waiting for this, is we get that whole are your users an admin versus are your users not an admin debate. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about this week. And I know there's a lot of people who are still very stuck with the no, we are the administrators of these machines, users will not have admin privileges. But I don't know if it's anything like me, but I don't really like getting phone calls at 2 o'clock in the afternoon of the Sunday of a long weekend and asking, but I just need this. And wouldn't it be really nice? Yeah. You can see Rich is down here like, no, that sucks. I don't like that. Wouldn't it be really nice if for 30 minutes they could have this, and then 30 minutes later, you could have this? That would be pretty cool. So what we did is we came up with a creative way with a little bit of Googling and a little bit of creativity on our own, a way to give a temporary admin. Is this sounding interesting? Hands up if this is like, ooh, yeah, all right, cool. Got the right audience. So what we've got in our self-service is something called Make Me Admin. So again, there's the whole, why on earth would you ever do such a thing? And so there's the, the 3 a.m., the 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a long weekend call. And there's also just the flexibility of, our users aren't necessarily all idiots. I work with a bunch of developers. In fact, I was rolling out Xcode last night, and I realized that in our organization, we've got 30 people with Xcode installed on their machines. These are not dumb people, and we should learn to trust them a little bit, but we also wanted to gather information about what they were doing with those privileges. So we just didn't want to give, full admin access, but at least allow them to be the creator of their own destiny a little bit. So we needed to know why it was used, and we also wanted it to revert back after a time schedule, because there's still also the case where someone might just not realize that they have those escalated privileges and just do something a little bit dumb. So to the end user, what does it look like? They go into self-service, and again, they've got this Make Me Administrator. So running this command will give your personal account, they don't have to have a new account or anything, they don't have to know anything different. Your personal account for the next 30 minutes will have administrator privileges. They click this, they click Engage, and then this opens up in their default web browser, which is asking for their name, it's asking for their email address, it's asking for their phone extension, and then a description of why they felt they needed administrator access, and asking for the machine name as well. And they just click the Request Access button, and the next thing they see is this nice little screen that says, okay, good, you have administrator access for the next 30 minutes. When they've done this, we get an email. We get an email directly from that form that says, this person requested it, this is their email, and this person needed to install this super awesome piece of software that's going to totally revolutionize how they work, and they want to be able to do it while they're standing on their head. And there's a machine name of where they're going to be installing it. All right. So this was a little bit of a multi-stage thing, and it's got 2 policies involved in it. The first policy has a dummy receipt so that we can at least do a little bit of smart groups, as well as 2 scripts. And the second policy has a custom trigger, and then it cleans up the receipt and another script. So let's take a little bit of a dive into this and seeing what we're doing. The dummy receipt. All it is a run command in the Advanced tab. And all I'm just doing is touching a file that looks like a package receipt. And it means that I can then create a smart group in my JSS saying, anyone who's got this receipt, put them into my smart group. And then in my scripts, the 2 scripts that are in that first policy, the first one is just, as the user, go and open up this web page. And so that's what directs them to that nice little web page that you saw of where they have to put in their information for the request. The second script is the one that actually is doing the hard work for us. So again, set up some variables of who it is that's logged in, and it's creating a plist file. It's actually creating a launch daemon. And what this is a timer. It's a timer to run the trigger, the Jamf trigger for the next policy. And so this is saying for 1,800 seconds, or 30 minutes, count this timer down, and at the end of that, run the command, which is actually your Jamf policy trigger admin remove. Cool. Once we've got all that in place, we just want to make sure that the launch daemon has all of the right ownership and right permissions, otherwise launchd complains a lot about that. And then you need to also load the plist, so it's actually running. So now your timer's counting down before it's going to run that trigger for your second policy. we're doing some logging on the local machine, just in case that information doesn't get back to our JSS somehow. At least we have a record of what has been going on the machine, as well as creating just a little one-liner text file that says this is the name of the user who has requested these privileges. And then this is what's doing the heavy lifting. This is the work of it, where you're using dsEdit group to use that username from our variable to put them in the admin group. All right? And that's it. That's that script. The second policy script is essentially to go in there and unload that launch daemon. Self-service in action, exactly. I think we're good for now, but thanks, Jonah. I have never had anything like that happen. All right, so our second policy, it goes in, and this is what has been triggered by the launch daemon. It's kicked off, and it says, OK, now go run this policy. It's going to go in and run that dsEdit group again to remove our user from the admin group. It's going to unload that launch daemon, and that's it, done. Their user no longer has admin privileges. If you take a look in your reports in your JSS, you actually get a nice bit of logging coming out from that as well. So it shows you exactly what they were doing, that the remove happened, that it was successful, that the user A. Kelly has been removed from the admin group, and then it went and removed the dummy package. And so that's, again, just in the little one-liner of the run command, just go and remove that file. In fact, that is my next slide. So again, just showing you the little one-liner of, remove that, and that means that they will fall out of the smart group so that you won't be notified anymore that this user has admin installed on their machine. And we also, because we have a smart group that's gathering all this information, you can get email notifications from your smart group. So even if the user decides not to fill in all the right information on that web form, we still get an email notification saying, hey, this person has fallen into the smart group for me admin. And we can then go off and take a look at the logs of that machine and figure out exactly what it was they were doing, or just simply pick up the phone, call them, and go, hey, what's up? How can we help you? So, make me admin. Kyle Brockman, I've been told he's here. Stand up, Kyle. If you go take a look on Jamf Nation, a whole lot of that information is work that Kyle has done. I may have tweaked the edges a little bit on what Kyle has done, but yeah, a lot of that is Kyle's work, so yeah, big applause to him. And it really solves the problem of getting those really inconvenient admin requests. So yeah. What would you do next? What's next in the world? So obviously what we've shown you here today is a lot of deep dive technical work. There's a lot of scripting, there's a lot of things to learn. So how do you get into this? How do you learn how to do this? How do you get your users calling you up in the middle of presentations? Scripting for Mortals was yesterday, so you can go to that or watch it online. Scripting Beyond Mortals is tomorrow morning, so after you've gone out and partied tonight, you'll be ready for that. And if you'd like to clone yourself right now, there is a Cultivating Self-Service Culture, which is up in the Dowling studio, but don't leave. But again, you can watch all that online. And so now, I have a feeling there's going to be a few questions.
Have you had your users abuse that?
The question is, have we had our users abuse it? Strangely enough, no. They're all fairly respecting of the fact that it says all over it that what they're doing is going to be logged. And it's actually been really useful for the past couple of days, because our entire team is actually at the JNUC this year. And so for our users to be able to have something really quick and dirty to be able to solve their problem while we're not there is very, very useful. And you have a follow-up question.
I do. Did the users have to reboot or log out and log back in to get the admin access?
The question was, do our users have to log out, log in, reboot? No, the DS Edit group is all on the fly. I know that there are a couple little things that might hiccup a bit with that, but if it's simply that they're trying to install a piece of software, which is usually what the case is, the next time that it goes and prompts for the admin credentials, they put it in and it works perfectly. We've got one back there.
Can you tell us some other creative applications that you've done with self-service?
Other creative. The question is other creative things I've done with self-service. A lot of what I do with self-service, it might be based around, you know, how I'm pushing out packages. I've done a lot of stuff like using the facility of the web clips on the side as well. So I actually duplicated that interface for Make Me Admin. I've made a web clip for creating a self-service support request. So our users can just click on that in self-service and be able to email us a request from there as well. I've done something for what's run on my machine, because there's no real good way for our users to see what policies have been run on their machine. And so I'm just running a little script that goes and parses the log on their local machine, gets rid of the whole bunch of the cruft that they don't need to see, and pulls out the policies that would be of interest to them so they can see when the last Office update. And again, that's just a little web clip on the side. And then I do a lot of interaction with stuff for installers as well. So for things like when there's a Firefox upgrade or something like that, just warning them that this upgrade is about to quit the Firefox that they have open, especially in like all the Java and the Flash updates. So giving them a chance to back out if they have something open that they wanted to save first and stuff like that. White shirt. Yes. Yeah, because it's a countdown. So even if they're offline, it'll still. The countdown will happen. It'll run the trigger, and of course it can't get to your GSS if it's offline, completely offline. But the next time that it checks in, it'll all happen out. We don't have anyone getting stuck in, you know, perennial admin. And I thought I saw a hand down here somewhere. Really, Marco? Come on. No? Black shirt back there. Correct.
Like K-12, 30 minutes is like 29 seconds.
Yeah, it's all based in seconds. So 1800 seconds is, you know, play with it at your will. Make it 1 second if you want. Gray shirt in the back.
So I know that the users had to agree with the Make My Admin thing that all activity will be logged.
Yes.
Is there anything in particular that's being logged from that? Because I know I have users that if I let them be admin for 30 minutes, would create a new admin account that they would have permanently.
Right.
And I'd like to be able to go and know that they did that.
So, yeah, no, you certainly can. I mean, so there's a couple of other things that I'm still thinking about with this. One of them, I'm looking at implementing Splunk and then being able to pull logs in from that. And so then I would be able to incorporate the logs that are happening on all of my workstations and have those flagged up in Splunk as well. So that is one way I'm looking at doing that. Otherwise, I mean, you'd be surprised. Our users are actually not abusing this. They've got their jobs to do. They're not there to go and break their machines. They're there to do their work. I mean, I guess that's the difference about working in enterprise as opposed to a K-12 environment. Did I just say that? But yeah, no, we haven't had anyone abuse it, and it's been there for several months now. We got the black shirt right next to him.
So it sounds like you won't have to worry about this, but some of the prompts that you're already using and then using the input from the users to define variables
Yes.
could be attacked through a bash injection. How are you scrubbing the input that you're getting from the users?
Interesting. So the question was, what if we got like a bash injection from someone inputting something? I have a feeling they'd have to be really smart about it and know exactly what the script was doing on the back end, just because a lot of my variables are used within other scripts, and I have a feeling it would probably just error out and fail at that point in time. It's an interesting thing, especially if you're working on something where you have to be very compliant. You may have to work things differently. I don't have those restrictions. But yeah, interesting concept. I hadn't thought about that one. Is there someone else? Rich.
This is more a follow-up for person who was concerned about you have admin rights, the first thing you're going to do is create a local admin. I've seen like discussions on Jamf Nation about this, where you can set up a script that basically looks for local users that aren't your local admin or your hidden Casper management account, and basically just as they appear, takes them out.
Yes, so Rich's point was that if you're concerned about your users creating another admin account, you certainly can set up a policy within your JSS to look for accounts which are not the expected admin accounts on those machines, and then just deep six them. I can hear all sorts of whispering. Is there anyone else who's got something? Over here.
I was just curious to know why you chose to use a custom trigger instead of just following a particular policy with a secret policy.
I use the custom trigger just because it's actually the user's local machine, which is triggering the policy to happen then. Because it's the launch daemon, which is then saying go off and then do this thing. So it could be that, I'm just trying to think of how you would do that another way. How would you suggest that you would do that otherwise?
You could just specify a policy.
I would load cron and start an app that would run after 1800 seconds. A script I locally have on the machine, so if the machine goes offline, the account would be deleted anyway.
Yes, that is another option to do. So Marco's suggestion was that he could have a local script that would, after 1800 seconds or whatever your desired time, would remove it, and they wouldn't even need a connection to the JSS at that point as well. Good idea.
To follow up with Rich, we do in our environment is to use Etsy off to prevent even admins from getting into the user preference.
Oh, cool. So what Kyle was saying is that in their environment, they use the Etsy auth file to prevent even any local admin from getting into the user's account, the account system preference plane. It's a novel, creative way of doing it. I've got one pan behind you, and I'll come right back to you.
Is the expect command that you were using, is that something that's built into all the operating systems, or is that from third-party apps?
Okay, so the question was, is expect built in? And yes, it is. Expect is there and expecting you. Sorry. I'm here all week. And down in front.
Yeah, I don't know if I could follow that up. I just had a thought on the custom trigger versus local script. By using the custom trigger, your policy is updating inventory.
Yes.
And that prevents your smart group from getting out of sync.
Yes. So yeah, the reason for using a custom trigger as opposed to a local script, which actually probably could do the same thing if you wrote your script creatively, is that it then keeps your smart groups up to date, so you know when people are falling in and out of policy. Over there in the black.
Flag or block, policy block, something that you can make to stop them from doing that over and over and over and over, so as they can make themselves admin every 30 minutes.
So the question is,
Emails, but if you don't read them.
so the question is there a way to stop someone from running this over and over again? So yes, you could do that in your JSS because there is the allow it. I'm trying to remember what all of the different options are. Yeah, once per day. You can allow it once per day. I don't actually have it locked down like that. I have actually got two make me admins. I've got make me admin and make me administrator. And I have them for different reasons. For instance, our laptop users, we don't know where they are and we don't know what they're going to be doing. And they're not always on our network. And we want them to always have the ability to make themselves an administrator because the laptop users are a different class of user. And so make me admin is available to them all the time. For everyone else in our company, Make Me Admin is only available between the hours of 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. and on weekends. All the rest of the time they have to call us. Anyone else I'm missing?
Quick question in the back there.
Yes.
When you utilize the change computer name
Yeah.
for self-service,
Mm-hmm.
we've run into the problem where it changes the computer name on the local machine, but as soon as it checks in with the JSS overwrites the computer name that's on the local.
Really interesting. I can't say that I've seen that. I'd be curious to see whether that's the JSS or your DNS doing that. I don't know if you've got dynamic DNS or anything like that.
No,
Or you got a
They're not bound to 80.
Okay. Apparently there's a post about it. Maybe you guys can hook up afterwards and discuss this one. Okay, apparently. So there may be an imaging issue. There is a question of whether it is fixed now, possibly. I would suggest a search on Jamf Nation and see what you come up with. What do I do about AD bindings? I use the built-in AD bind tool. When I change the computer name, we actually haven't had an issue with it. It's been fine. All right, in the center.
Oh yeah, just real quick, since it's about getting users to do our job, how about when they don't do that? Like, what about just sort of whatever your patch cycle is aligned with your other platform? What is that?
Okay, so the question is, what does our patch cycle look like? We try to keep up to date with what's going on. We have testing. Basically, we test it internally for ourselves. We've got a whole bunch of like software update servers, and we test it on ourselves on our test software update server, and then deploy it. We try to keep on top of whenever things are happening. We don't really have a set policy of, updates will be done on the second Thursday of every month, because it's just not dynamic and fluid enough for us. Because we've got a large development in-house as well, they like to have different versions of things or be very specific about what they're doing, and so we don't necessarily want to override what they're working on. That can be a little bit uncomfortable for them. So yeah, we kind of, it's pretty fluid. Okay, I know Jonah has got some announcements that he needs to give before we wrap up. Is there any other questions? Shoot your hand in the air now. Down in the front center.
Simple question. Do you have your users log into self-service, or is it wide open?
The question is, do our users log into self-service? And yes, they do, which is exactly how we get the change computer name to work, because our support technicians are in an AD group, which gives them different things within self-service than a normal user would see. Okay. And, oh, there's one more up there. Hi. All right, so how did we get our users using self-service? So this was fun. It wasn't funny, it was just fun. We introduced self-service very gradually. We just had a couple little things in there. Like we started off with the whole, first aid, an intensive first aid, and then gradually introduced more and more things. And it was like we had a user base that were asking us for updates. They were asking us for new things. And we're actually getting feedback that they absolutely love this. They really love to be able to use self-service. They love that they can see what's new and recent, be able to grab little bits and pieces. And they talk about self-service to each other. The biggest complaint that we've had is that they don't get to be social and call us on the phone anymore. Is there anything else before we let Jonah have a microphone? All right, Jonah. Thank you.